Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. This is DGI-382 and we are looking at the markets. You know that the midterms have concluded. We still don't know who's going to be controlling the House. The Senate has been decided. It's going to stay with the Democrats. And to understand what happened last week and how to what to expect next week, let's welcome our co-host Sridhar Chityalaji. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel.
Namaskar and good afternoon, good morning, late good evening to everybody, and wonderful to be back here on Sunday for market wrap up as well as what's going to happen and what's happening on the election front in the United States.
Absolutely, sir. Take it away. Let's start with equities.
Yes, could we get yes? The markets finished on a very positive note based on one important data point. The inflation for the month of October seemed to indicate a downward trend relative to the prior month, which is the September. So that in itself triggered some positive momentum in conjunction with earnings numbers. So the Dow S&P went up by about 6%, and on Friday it was up about 0.92%. The Dow also went up, and the NASDAQ went up by almost 1.88 or 2%, and the big stocks like Amazon and Alphabet, went up by almost 10%. So, in all, very positive news for the equities markets based on the inflation data last week. This cascaded itself into the global markets. The next slide. The next slide. Yes, NASDAQ we touched. It went up by about 2% on Friday on a positive momentum as a result of money shifting from growth to value. So let's move to the next slide. So the equities also rubbed itself into the European markets. The DAX was up, the FTSE was slightly down, and the CAC was up. The Nikkei and Shanghai, the Shanghai and Hong Kong went up. Hong Kong, Shanghai went up on a very important data point that is coming from China, namely that they are going to relax the COVID quarantines by about 2 days or 3 days. So, which means that there could be positive momentum in the Chinese markets, and that was reflected in the Shanghai and the Hang Seng indexes.
Sridharji, one question about equities. There was one day when the Dow went up by 1,200 points. Now, when it falls rapidly, there are some guards where you kind of stop and go into, break, put some brake. What about when it's going up rapidly, Sridharji?
Newton's law of gravity, the ball goes up, the high, what you call the force with which you propel the ball, it'll go higher and higher. It depends on what was the force that threw the ball up. Sriji, you are a cricket expert, so therefore you should know. So that's the story. So everybody cannot bowl at 150 kilometers per hour. Some people only do 120. So it was one of those days when the ball was hurled at 150 kilometers per hour. But when it comes down at only one pace. It doesn't matter, G. That is what pace you threw up. So that's what you saw. So to answer your question on that day, there was some very positive. I mean, that it was the day on which the inflation numbers were announced. If people are not familiar, United States operates on what you call programmatic trading. So there are triggers. And when the trigger is there, you will see the market almost identically behave. So it goes up in identical pattern. So somebody is pushing the engine forward, and then you have, this guy has pushed up this by 10 basis points. I'm going to push up by 10. So this automatic trigger that pushes up the market based on these programmatic trades that are set up on the upward momentum. So that's why you see, and very similar on the downward spiral. So that is the reason why you see these kinds of huge volatility in the markets during that period. And actually, there's another index called as the volatility, the VIX. People also trade on VIX, and if you're a smart trader, you just say, okay, I stay away when the VIX is showing high abnormality. So that's what happens in equities market, Sriji, to answer your question.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to the next one, which is the bonds.
The bond market, obviously, when the equities goes up, then they feel that there is possibly de-acceleration. So the 10-year for the first time on the U.S. bond market, U.S. Treasury came down below 4%. So you saw the trigger; it went down by 330 basis points. So that's why it went dipped below the 4% mark. It's an anticipation. You won't see much movement in the short-term rates, which we will show shortly. The bond, did not believe, and it stayed above, added about, 1/10 of a basis point, and it was up 2.16. The Japanese reacted favorably. Whenever the rates are likely to go down, that has a direct consequence on the consequence on the yen, the currency, which in turn rippled itself through the Japanese market. That's why you saw the bond yields come down on the Japanese 10-year, and you'd see something similar across the other European 10-year yields as well.
Now let's look at the. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so you can see that. Sorry, Shriji, I would just want to say that 6 months, 1 year, all those numbers are still well above the 4%. And you can see the 10-year is below 3, 7-year is below 3, and 5-year. So whenever there is a rate trajectory, you may not see much movement because the rate is already locked. And you will only when there is a next rate change, you begin to see the consequence in the short term, which is anything from 3 months to up to 2 years. That those which are in the 7 to 10-year, they fall when they see a rate trajectory. This is the yields that fall, and you can now see the 7, almost from 5-year, the yields are below 5%, below 4%, which is different to what we showed you before. Let's say in the last weekend chart. This is all in anticipation. This could change when the next set of data is announced.
Now, Sridharji, before the midterms, it was expected that the GOP is going to get the majority in House and perhaps also a good chance of getting the majority in Senate. And there was some rise in market. Now that the Democrats have managed to retain control of the Senate, is there going to be any effect of the midterm on the equities and bonds, sir?
I think it's a great question. The markets rose on 2 factors. One, there would be some resolution on the energy front with GOP having a control of the House. The second is that there would be tapering down of these chachkas or freebies or the dole-outs that continue to flow. So fiscal diligence will be maintained. So these were the 2 factors that was factored in, and there was some positive momentum in the markets on the hope of the exit polls. The exit polls and the outcome seems to be completely contrarian. And so clearly the Senate is gone because it's now 50-50 or 50-49, 50 to Democrats, 49 to the Republicans. And even assuming that the voters turn up and the Georgia is a stalemate, like, it's won by Republicans, so there's 50-50, it's very clear that the Democrats have wrested control of the Senate, which is they will make they control all important decisions. House looks like even a humdinger. I don't know whether they'll finish with 219, 216, or the Democrats will again spring a surprise and regain the House or be a stalemate. In both the circumstances, you will see markets generally going south. Very clear, if you had followed the COP27 summit, Mr. Biden gave a warning to the world that everybody must adhere to the climate accord and fossil fuels are out of the window. So we must contain the fossil fuels. So which implies we can expect some negative news from a market's point of view, especially on fiscal front, on the energy front, Sriji.
Oil has also risen. I think it was at 90 beginning of the week, but then it fell down quite a bit, and then it is now again on an upward trail. The China news that you mentioned, is it because of the COVID opening that this could be the reason, sir?
Exactly. It's because of the COVID restriction of the COVID quarantine, which means that there's a possibility for the markets to reopen in China. That's why you saw positive momentum flow into the markets. With regard to your question, with regard to your context in oil, yes, it was $85. It's gone. This is the West Texas crude was $85. It has shot up to $88.86. The Brent, though it remained unchanged, went up from about 93 to $96 or 95.99. So we can expect now with Democrats back in power, Sriji, that you will begin to see that factor that was not factored in when the oil rise happened. That is the demand. When there's a demand, the prices go up. So we are now going to have a demand trigger as a result of, or a demand constraint as a result of the Democrats back in power, both in House and Senate in US, which means there's no supply coming, imminent supply coming from United States side. So brace yourself for price increases on the oil market.
And commodities, gold is up 1%, and silver and copper. Why is the copper up by so much, Sridharji?
I think the copper is basically up because of supply chain disruptions. The supply chain issues continue to be a problem around the world, and those logger jams have not been removed. Gold and silver, the prices are up, especially when you see yield curves come down, the money shifts to this, what you call the commodity currencies, which is gold and silver.
Next one, please. So the United States dollar has fallen a little bit this week. Is it also because of inflation, Sridharji?
No, it's because of the yield curve. Remember, I mentioned to you when the
Yeah,
yield
the bonds.
yeah, when the bond market comes, fixed income comes down, you will also see currencies. So, in other words, there is no attraction to put money in the US dollar that cascades itself back into the respective currencies. What is amazing here is that the Japanese yen is now is around $138. Remember, not too long ago, we were talking about 150 to 152 when Japan intervened. And the euro is at 1.035. It's no longer 99 cents, so it's about 1.035. The GBP to US dollar is no longer at $1, it's at 1.18. So all the currencies have shown appreciation against the appreciation against the US dollar, purely on the back of the positive news on the rate front. It did not feed itself as yet into the renminbi, and as well as I say, Japanese yen and renminbi reacted very positively, whereas you wanted euro to go the opposite way.
Next, please. And crypto, this is an important one because we have been looking at this. Also, there was some major development. Sridharji, touch upon the major developments and your forecasts on where Bitcoin is headed, sir.
Bitcoin is now, this is Friday data. Over the weekend, it's been trading. It's back to 16,000 levels. Ethereum is around 1150, 1200 levels. What's the big news? FTX, which is the third largest exchange, collapsed, filed for bankruptcy. There was a discussion with Beyonce, which is the second largest crypto exchange. They backed out after doing the due diligence. So Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried, he was a 16 billion billionaire, and he effectively is now, is most of his wealth desecrated. There's a number of things that's attributed to FTX exchange. And my simple one-liner is crypto and the crypto exchanges and the underlying protocols, there's nothing wrong with them. They will continue to exist and operate. This is just a case of leverage and fiscal indiscipline. So in other words, FTX had a trading arm called Alameda Research, which used to trade in traditional markets, in speculative markets such as derivatives and FX and other forms of physical markets, and They put a lot of money. They leveraged. The leverage was greater than 6x. And when the markets go south, as it happened, margin calls happen. When margin calls occurred, then FTX Almeida could not, FTX could not, and support it. So they had to file for bankruptcy. The amount of liquidity required to meet the obligations is about 8 billion. There's no $8 billion. More fundamental than that is that if you go back to 2008, 2009 crisis, one of the norms that was put in place was that you cannot trade and speculate on client funds. You can do on your own capital, but not on client funds. And these fellows were trading on client deposits.
Well, we have to see what happens legally for this gentleman. He's one of the biggest donors of the Democratic Party. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Sridharji, that was a wonderful wrap up, sir. Now let's take a look at the impact of elections, the midterm elections, the leadership of Trump. I apologize to our viewers. We were going to talk about is the Donald Trump magic over last week, but we had so much to cover that we didn't have a chance to look at that specific item. Will Donald Trump continue to lead the party? Keep the noise aside, Sridharji. We want to look at data. How many candidates had his approval? How many won? Does that mean it is a victory for him or not? Take it away, sir.
Well, I think according to the data, there's about 200 candidates in some form, shape between House, Senate, and various other elections, including gubernatorial, plus local elections that took place, which had the endorsement of Trump, of which the numbers say between 150 to 155 candidates of Trump supported, Trump nominated candidates won. So, just purely on the numbers side, he still seems to carry the charisma and he seems to carry the mindset and the wallet mind share of the people. He does not carry the clearly the party. Now already there's rumbles within the party that he should step aside, especially he was leveling criticism against Ron DeSantis, who clearly has emerged as the leader of the Republican Party based on what he has accomplished. Remember, there were 7 or 8 states we listed as the what we called as the battleground states. Florida is a thumping victory for Republicans. Ohio, thumping victory for Republicans. Pennsylvania split, they lost. Fetterman won. Nevada, Trump candidate lost. Arizona, Trump candidate lost. Then we come to Georgia. Georgia has a runoff. So therefore, it's a mixed bag as far as the battleground is concerned. The battleground states did not convert into an outcome based on Trump's support and prophecy for the candidates. So it is a bit of a setback. If I have to kind of take a punt, my humble suggestion would be that he should quietly withdraw and provide his leadership and support to the Republican Party, notably Ron DeSantis, so that the party can unite and move forward. But that's not what is going to happen, Shriji.
Unfortunately, yes. On the 15th, he's supposed to make a major announcement. So we'll wait and see what happens. Sridharji, next week, what to expect, sir?
Next week, I think that we will have a resolution. We'll be very lucky if the House holds on. If the Republicans can clinch the House. If they do, then you will see some positive buoyancy. But right now, it's like 219 to 216. 219 to the Republicans, 216 to the Democrats, plus or minus, 3 or 4. So if it happens to be -3 or -4, then you can state that Republicans have lost the House. That's it. It's a hard thing for them to recover out of it. One more important data point, the 3 battleground states which brought President Trump to power, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all 3 are now Democratic. So they are no longer battleground states. It's a huge hill to climb as far as the Republicans are concerned. So all this will cascade itself into into economic activities and economic market sentiments as we move forward next week. But there are two important meetings that are going on and that will conclude next week. One is the ASEAN summit. We will be covering that in the daily global insights. We'll also be covering what is happening with the G20 summit, where the Xi Jinping and President Biden will meet, and finally, what's happening in the Russia-Ukraine war. Is the Kherson withdrawal happened, and has the Ukrainians taken over? So we'll cover all these things next week, Sriji.
Absolutely, sir. And we'll be back on Thursday at 6 p.m. IST. And Sridharji, thank you so much.
Tuesday.
I'm sorry, Tuesday, 6 p.m. IST. I even got the time wrong. Let me say that again. Tuesday, 6 p.m. IST. Thank you so much, Sridharji. And please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. I use an iOS and I subscribe to my own channel. I do not get notifications. I have not clicked on the bell. So I know that the bell does the trick for iOS, iPhone owners. So please do both things. Subscribe as well as click on the bell button. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. And let's all hope for the best for the markets to show some positive buoyancy.